Okay guys, this is my first sit and go tutorial, and it's the basics of winning at sit and go tournaments. It's quite simple ideas all the way through it, just basically getting you playing the right cards, knowing when to fold, certain hands, and hopefully we'll do well. Unfortunately, I made a previous video before this and it got corrupted somehow. Bloody typical if you ask me, but hey, such is life. So now I'm having to talk over the actual recording of the screen. It's not happening live, which is a bit annoying, but never mind. What we've got here is a 6 max, just a simple $5.50 buy-in on William Hill. And now the other table's loading up. I believe this is a 10-man sit and go. Also $5.50 buy-in. See, we've got pocket twos in the big blind. There's no need to raise here with this sort of a hand because you're not really wanting to get the pot big just yet. The sort of a hand you want to be getting involved and trying to hit a set. You're not really looking to do anything else here. Sort of strategy that I'll be continuously trying to hit home with, about getting into pots cheap and trying to hit big cards and then get the pot bigger. I mean, here we're just not interested in the hand really. We're just going to keep checking as they're checking. I may even try and steal the pot if everyone continues to check. I doubt I'm going to do anything crazy just yet, not this early in the tournament. I mean, the style I'm recommending to play is tight aggressive. It's one of the easiest styles to play, and it's the style that wins. I'd be interested in your feedback, whether you just prefer playing one table. I don't know if this is, the quality of the image is clear enough for you guys. You just have to let me know. Or if you prefer me just focusing on one table. I thought it would keep it more interesting if we had two going at the same time, otherwise there's going to be long pauses where we're just waiting for other hands to finish. Especially as I'm playing a tight aggressive style. If you're wondering what the small black boxes are, some of you may know, that is my Hold'em manager running in the background, which is a brilliant software to really improve your game because it just tells you everything you need to know about your opponents. It's not 100% necessary, but it is crucial, in my opinion, in improving your win rate. Say a 3-6 on the big blind, not interested in any of that, just going to fold. I'm also interested to know if you guys just want me to cut down on hands that are actually in here, because obviously there's going to be a lot of folding because of the style I'm playing, and that's the result and the reason why this video is so long, because these tournaments aren't turbo. I never recommend playing turbo in my opinion. People that play turbo are just wasting the opportunity to exploit poor players really. You let the blinds get big and you let the game turn into luck, which is why I always recommend in playing normal. But yeah, if you think these videos are too long, I can cut down the hands that are inside, the actual video itself, but that might give you the impression that, hey, he keeps picking up aces and kings. Well, that's kind of because I've cut out all the other hands I've not been playing, but you guys let me know, I can easily do that. 2-8 here, obviously not going to play. I mean, if you guys want me to make shorter videos, which are just all to do with different types of strategy that you can employ, I'm more than happy to do that, but whilst I'm recording now, I'm just going to keep going through everything I can think of whilst the game's playing out. but I know that when I watch a tutorial I much prefer to watch them actually playing all the way through, just so that I can get a feel for like everything. It's like when you watch the World Series of Poker, all you're seeing is highlights. And many poker players will know that you just don't continuously keep getting ace king, ace queen, ace king, ace queen, ace jack, ace king king. You don't keep getting those hands. I mean, there is long spells of folding. I mean, if you want to be a player that's playing lots of hands, then that might be one of the reasons that you're not winning. Very easy game to win, sit and goes. Sure, if you can play the style of playing many hands, say ace with weak kicker, and by kicker I mean the other card along with the ace, basically. In simple terms, I like to keep everything simple. And basically, it's just you're going to hit top pair, and unless you're a good enough player, you're not going to be able to fold that necessarily. So, you know, so I've come in for a raise here of 40 with pocket fives, and then some guy's gone and shoved all in. I mean, you just never call there with fives. I mean, at best you're about 52% favourite against overcards, but I doubt they have that. It's going to be a strong hand, and there you go, it's aces. Yeah, the other guy had 9, so and he's gone and got super lucky there with the 9s, but hey, doesn't bother us. So what I did there was I only raised 2x and instantly found out that the players behind me had better cards. I usually limp there with 5s, but for some weird reason I'm raising, who knows, but I'm glad I did. And to go into more detail about the HUD, as it's called, or heads-up display of the software running in the background, Hold'em Manager, all the stats are color-coded basically, and the first is my name, or the other user's name. The next number is something called M, which I will probably do an individual video about, which is highly important, and I will bring it up more later on in this video, but in the early stages it's not really relevant. And the next number along is the number of hands, and beneath that first one is VPIP, and VPIP is voluntarily putting money into the pot, and it's a crucial stat to have because it basically lets you know how often these players are playing their hands, what percentage of their hands are they voluntarily playing. And light blue means they're not playing enough, green means they're playing just the right range. I mean, I don't particularly choose to play in that range. I don't look at it and go, oh, I better fold here because I'm venturing out of the green, but the style I'm going to try and teach you should just make you fall into that zone. Then you have red, which is aggressive, which is kind of unpredictable. There could either be a rubbish player that's playing fairly aggressive and crap cards, or there could be a very good aggressive player. And purple basically means they just want to give you their money. They're having fun, which you should do in $5.50s, but I'm just picking random stake levels. It's up to you guys as well. If you want to pick different stake levels, I'm happy to play at them. I don't know if you have already researched my accounts, but I'm quite comfortable playing at around the $22 stake level. Made around $1,000 profit on that at full tilt before they shut it down, which is unfortunate, so I was doing rather well on that site. 6-7 here, just fold. No real reason in playing that hand. But ace jack on the other table, just a standard 3x. I always like to raise 3x for nearly with every single hand I play, just so that you're not changing around too much. They say you should mix it up, but let's face it, people just start deliberately raising certain amounts. Say they start raising smaller with big hands or whatever. I mean, I'm just going to keep betting here because I'm trying to push out certain draws. And now I'm likely to check here because there's no other hands that are going to call me. Basically, I'm only going to get called by better. And when you play poker, you should always think, what is the point of bet? I'm apparently going for value on the end here. My apologies. I believe he may have an ace then if I'm making this bet, or he's just going to fold. Quite surprised at myself for making that bet, to be honest. But having a look at his stats, I can see why. He has a very high VPIP basically, which could make him play weak aces and things like this. But I'm quite surprised I made that bet on the end there. I wouldn't advise that. I mean, there is something called thin value, which you basically is where you don't want to be checking a hand to someone where you think they might have called a bit more, which is basically what I was trying to do there. I was basically saying, right, this guy could have something. I wonder how small I can make it so he actually calls me here, because chips are very important in sit and goes. It's highly important that you take as many chips as possible at the start and all the way through, obviously, because those small amount of chips add up over time. That's basically the point I'm trying to get to. I mean, here with nines, this guy's just gone and bet pot on me, and that basically betting pot there is basically the same as saying all in. This guy's not going to fold his extra for 110, so I have to make a decision here. Does he have a king? Does he not? Do I want to risk this early on my tournament on pocket nines with the king on the board? And I think we later find out that he didn't have the king, but I just don't agree with putting your tournament on a line when you can wait for a much better spot, if that makes sense. I mean, there's going to be a point where I know I'm going to be in the lead, I know I want to get my chips in the pot, and I know that they're going to call me, so it's like, why go in when you're not 100% sure? So here you can see me using the chat box, asking if he was bluffing there. And I don't recommend using the chat box as much, but sometimes you can get information. You just have to be careful you're not giving away too much information. And Queen 8, it's always nice to get a walk, well, not a walk, a free look at the flop. I mean, here again, this is another scenario where there's no point in betting, and he's gone and said he had 6-6 in that previous hand. I'm not sure if you guys can read that. I'm now investigating the hand to have a look if that actually makes sense, or if he's lying to me. I mean, I've checked all the way here with the 8 because, I mean, once again, go back to the principle of if I'm going to bet that 8 on that flop, what's he going to call me with that's not going to beat me? And again, no point in betting on that river because, again, what's he going to call me with that I'm actually going to be beating there? So here we've got Queen King, and some people overrate this hand. It's not that strong of a hand, and out of position it's also not that strong of a hand, so it's a hand you have to play very carefully. There are very few flops you're going to like the look of, so always tread carefully with this sort of a hand. Never re-raise in that spot there. And here I might actually try and steal this pot because I'm just getting a read off my opponents that I don't believe they have anything, and I've gone and made a strange bet size here. I mean, this is a strategy I like to call the poke, which is basically you bet a small amount to try and win the pot, which is actually relatively large to do a bet. I've only bet about 1/3 of the pot there, and I've managed to take it down with just king high. The initial aggressor, the guy on the button there, raised to 100, and you know, he then is in position, sees 2 checks in front of him, and should definitely bet. He should bet every single flop almost, as he's the initial raiser at the start. Basically, he's the aggressor in the pot, and he didn't, and nor did the short stack, who I believe should have basically pushed all in. And that just led me to believe that none of them had anything. And if I bet the turn there, and one of them calls me, for example, I don't believe they have the jack, and I believe as long as a safe card falls on the river, I will be able to bluff again, unless it's the short stack, in which case I would have to check because they'd basically be all in, and they're not going to fold. So here's an example of long pauses in the video where I'm not saying anything. So just let me know if you want me to cut it down as much as I possibly can, because you know, you don't want to be watching needless minutes of nothing happening. So I get the feeling people will want me to cut it down. So just let me know. Just drop me a comment. 5 queen, not going to play that. Might be on the button, but the blinds basically getting started talking about strategy. I like to call it the quartiles of a tournament. There's basically 4 sections of a tournament. There's the beginning section where I believe you should only be playing the strongest of hands, unless you're confident with playing hands. For example, like this one, Queen King. If you're confident at playing hands like these, then you should play them. But otherwise, you can fold them. They're not exactly the best hands in the world. They're even losing to just like a naked ace, and by that I mean like ace 5. So okay, so here I've limped with it and then instantly been raised, and you could argue that I'm just pissing chips away here by just calling and then folding to that. But if you have a look at the tournament indicator, you can see that that guy had only raised pre-flop, I think it was 5%, and that sort of a range is going to be very strong, and that's why I folded there. You want to make sure you're not going to hit a king and be outkicked by ace king. That is the worst thing that can happen to you, and that's the reason why I folded there. And back to talking about strategy. So basically in the first quartile you aren't really going to play anything at all apart from your strong hands, because the pot is that small. There's really like no need to start trying to be all bluffy and tricky with your opponents. And here I've got ace 6 and I'm never going to raise here. I'm never really raising. People argue you can raise to find out where you are, but I don't believe that. I believe that if you're going to raise, find out where you are, you're just wasting chips anyway. If you're going to call, you're going to, you're going to find out if they keep betting and betting and betting. So like for example, if he bet here, I'm going to fold. If he bets again here, I'm going to fold. And again, the same principle, I can't raise here on the river because I'm going to get called by anything that beats me. A better kicker, ace, better kicker, 2 pair trips, flush is then beating me, so there's no point in betting there. And I'm just looking, and he had ace 4, so credit to him for betting that many streets, and also credit to him for checking on the river. So yeah. So back to the quartiles, and then so your second one is when the blinds are slowly starting to creep up, and here you should start playing a bit more in position, and by position I mean using the button, which I haven't really covered yet. It's obviously the basics. You always want to be in something poker players call position, which is where you're always acting last on the flop, the turn, and the river, because it becomes very simple to understand a hand. You get more information, and it makes it more obvious what they have, basically, and you can lost a complete trail of thought here, and you can basically bluff more. It's much more easier to bluff, because if they bet the flop, for example, and then you're next to act and you call them, and then they check their turn, it's almost screaming in your face that they've got nothing and they were just trying to steal the pot away from you on the flop. So that's just one example of how position can help you. Not really playing much at all on the 10 max. It's just sort of a bit robotic, really. It's basically the left side I'm telling you the style I'm playing, and on the right side you can just see it in action, really. And I will obviously commentate on big hands that are happening on the right, but mainly focusing on the left table. I do specialise mostly in 6 max. I'm not exactly the best at 9 max, 10 max. That's how my results show anyway. But the strategy is still the same, basically. I mean, I'm well open to feedback. I don't claim to be the best poker player in the world. I make mistakes, and my belief is that you play poker, everyone makes mistakes, and the winning players are the ones that make the fewest mistakes. So, yeah, if you notice anything I'm doing wrong, please do let me know, because I appreciate the feedback. And already you can see on the tournament indicators around each player's name just the sort of player they are. You can see the different colours appearing now. I believe I'm the only light blue on the table now. There is a strong leaning towards crazy players, shall I say, on this table I'm on. I mean, the guy, for example, called Mogula, I think it is, I can barely read it on my screen, is well, that he's played 44% of all the hands he's been dealt, and that's just, you know, not very good poker. He's just very weak. He's just playing so many cards that it would be very, very easy to bluff him, very easy to put him on cards, very easy to sort of like, you know, you're good basically. When you're playing against him, you know that you're a favourite. You know that you're going into a hand with him as the best. And here we are raising with 7-8. So this is an example of the quartiles of the tournament. We're now at a different stage. When the blinds get to about 50, 100, this is where I'd like to say that you're now supposed to start stealing from position. You pick up 7-8 suited, definitely a good stealing hand. And the reason I've made it 250 there, and here we go, get a few more stats being showed now. And the reason I made it 250 there is just, say you save 50 chips if you get re-raised and have to fold, and those chips add up. They add up a hell of a lot in a second go. I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever had the situation where there's been a three-way all-in and there's only 3 people left and you've won because you've had just a few more chips than the opponent's got knocked out. And that, when you've had that experience, you realise how much a small amount of chips means. So here's me just displaying what different types of stats you get on the HUD. Obviously, as I said at the start, I'm not recording live, which because the audio messed up on this recording. And now we're down to 3-handed, and we're down to 3-handed in quite an early stage of the tournament. And again, there's no need to steal with 6-8. And on the other table, you can see I've got pocket tens now on the big blind. It's a bit of a tricky hand to play because you're never sure where you are. For like, you never know if you should push, you should just call. I mean, I like to think of tens as like a drawing hand. I don't really rate them that much because in a multi-way pot, it's very difficult to play them. For example, here's the flop, Queen, King, 3. That's a very difficult flop to play with tens. I don't recommend betting at it because you're just going to get re-raised and you can easily be bluffed off a hand that could be winning. So this is why I like to call them a drawing hand. If I don't hit my 10, I'm not usually that satisfied. But it obviously depends on how many players are in the hand. If it's heads up, i.e. 1v1, then it's very you have an extremely strong hand, and I don't deny 10s is a very strong hand then. But when there's 4 of you in a pot, their strength is reduced just like any other hand in Hold'em. It's reduced a long way. But here we are 3-way with 10s. It then becomes a very strong hand, and I'm just going to fold 10s here. It's highly unlikely it's going to be beating anything that they're holding. So when someone pushes all in here 3-way, I'm highly inclined to call, just because this guy we know is a bit crazy. And there you are, pocket 5s, and he goes and hits trips on us, which is pretty sick. But hey, never mind. Bad example of a tutorial, that one, finishing in 3rd just by the bubble. Never mind, hopefully you took something from that you shouldn't really get tilted just because you've been knocked out as a favourite. But you know, it's still not nice, but you can get lucky yourself, and you got to realise that poker is gambling at some point, and you can get unlucky, and that unfortunately happened there. So now we're just down to our 10 max table, and we so far I've invested $11 in this session, $5.50 and $5.50, so we're looking to make $11 and break even. And I am currently on a rake back deal on William Hill. Basically means I get back 45% of any of the fees I pay, which is, if you're not playing with rake back, then to be honest, you're making a big mistake. Even though PokerStars, for example, just to name one of the big sites, or the biggest site, you're paying a serious amount of fees every day if you're playing regularly, and they pay you around, depending on what rating you are, around like 5% rake back, which to be honest is a complete rip-off. It's a complete joke. That is like, they may as well just take all your money. What's the point in giving back 5%? It's like, why? So at the end of every month, this site will pay 45% of all the fees I have paid into my account, and it's so easy to get that sort of a deal, as long as you've not played with these certain sites before. And there are endless sites out there that will offer you it. I mean, if you're interested, I mean, just drop me a comment. I mean, there's so many places that you can get rake back deals, and I can easily point you in the right direction. Apologise, there's a lot more silence now as well because obviously now only on the one table. I didn't load up another one because the side. I don't know about if it's the same on your screen, but it is kind of hard to see the numbers in the actual holder manager HUD. Basically, the numbers around the players' names. It's quite hard to see them. So just a reminder: the first number on the bottom left is the VPIP, the percent of hands they're playing. The second is the pre-flop raise percentage. They're all percentages. And the third number is the 3-bet percent. And the 3-bet is where, for example, there's the small blind and the big blind, and let's say T-Fon raises to 120. Then the player behind him makes it 360. The player behind him has done a 3-bet. That's basically all it is. Very simple. And then if someone re-raised that, there'd be a 4-bet, and so on. Again, there's not much to say here. Just folding a7. There's no reason to play it there. You were in early position. It's a very, very mediocre hand, and if you're going to hit your ace, you're never going to know where you are, so you may as well just fold. And you can already see that there's a lot of weak players out here. Just a quick glance around can instantly show you where the strong players are waiting. Basically, they're lying in wait for a big hand, and they will then capitalize on it. I mean, for example, we have at the top left, God knows how I'm going to say that name, but Eldo Sente. He is 9% pre-flop raise, 9% VPIP. So any hand he's played, he's raised with basically before the flop. And T-Fon is just the same, the picture of a cannon. He's played 9% of his hands and not raised a single one of them. And that's a very, very tight player. I mean, he's playing exactly the same style as me. 9% played, 4% of them were raised. And it's a winning style. It will get you into the money. If you play this style, it will get you into the money. And you will eventually, once you've learned maybe how to fold some tricky spots. But they're very rare, very, very rare, a tricky spot in these sort of tournaments. I'd say it's more multi-table tournaments that you get tough decisions. In these, it's pretty standard because the blinds get high and you basically have to get your chips in the middle. So it does become a very simple game. Jack 6 under the gun, obviously going in the muck. It's a rubbish hand. Back to the quartiles of the tournament. So as I was saying, the first one you play really tight, only playing strong hands, not even stealing from the button. I mean, there's no point. The blinds are going to be 10, 20, and it's like, why put in 60 to try and win 30? It's such a small amount. And you can end up getting called and then hitting an appearingly nice flop, and they could have two pair and knock you out so early in the tournament. And if you're getting knocked out holding a6, that's just embarrassing. You shouldn't even be holding that hand in that stage of the tournament. And then the second you're going to open up your range, second quartile, you're going to open up your range a bit. You're going to start stealing from the button. You're going to start maybe trying out the poke play, which I just recommended earlier, where I did a raise of 111 into 300 and they just all folded. It's just that simple. It's amazing what a bet can do, no matter how small it is in poker. So here we have T-Fon actually making a raise, and as soon as I see that guy putting chips in, I'm going to get out of the way. So at the moment we're in the second quartile. So this guy knows that he should still be playing a fairly tight range, especially if he doesn't have position, and that's exactly what he did. So that's why we're folding there, and obviously our hand wasn't strong either. But here again, so it's the second quartile, I'm going to try and steal the ace-10. 240 to minimise the actual loss I could make. And we take the blinds. Good result. I didn't really want to have any action there. Any raise that comes in, I'm likely going to be losing to him. And then the third stage is where you start opening up your range even further. So from middle position, you'll start playing a more open range. For example, you may start playing King Jack, King Queen, King 10 suited, things like that. By stage 4, your chip stack in comparison to how big the pot is at the beginning of a hand will have shrunk dramatically, and you're at the point where you basically just want to take the blinds. They'll be that big, and we'll get to that stage in this tournament where the blinds get that big that you're at a point where you need to go all in or just fold. And that's the fourth stage, where if you play a loose aggressive style, you will be a very successful poker player, but you just have to bite the bullet, and sometimes you're going to get unlucky and you are going to get knocked out in the bubble, which is obviously not ideal. And it also, I find it, you do need to have a big stack when going into sort of bubble play. You can't just start, say, from where I am on 1,600 and they've got 6,000 and 6,000, and you're just sat there trying to, that math doesn't make any sense, but anyway, and you're sat there just trying to raise them. They're not going to be intimidated by you. They're going to re-raise you and they're going to knock you out. So here's an example of me opening my range. You wouldn't have seen me do this earlier in the tournament. Ace-10, and I've come in for a raise, hoping to steal the dealer position off of this guy and to make those other two fold. And we'll just have a look what happens. I'm literally just going for the blinds, and again I'm successful in doing that. And to answer the question, if anyone raised me there, I'm going to fold. If anyone raises me there a considerable amount, I'm going to fold. I mean, even if it only min clicked me, I'm going to fold, because ace-10 is just beaten by so many hands. It's being beaten at the start by all the pairs, obviously, and it's then being beaten by ace-jack, ace-queen, and ace-king. It's not really a hand you want to be calling all-ins with all the time. And now I'm going around the table just looking at just how their VPIP is broken down. I mean, a limp is where they just call the big blind. So basically, just at the moment it'd be the same as just throwing in 100 chips and trying to see the flop. And I'm just going around just seeing how they're doing it, because I was quite surprised by how these players were playing, especially some of them. I believe the guy directly on my left was playing a very strange sort of game. He was like, if you look at him, he's played 43% of his hands, but he's only raised 3% of them. So I was highly curious of what that actually meant. Did that mean that whenever this guy raises, what, he's got aces? Is that like a huge tell in his game? I mean, what the hell's he doing? So I just wanted to have a look, and also what position they were doing it from, because if you see along the top of that last clip, you can go back to it. They're basically, it shows along the top of the table what position they're playing from, and if a player is limping from early position, you know they're not a very strong player. That you shouldn't really limp. I don't even recommend limping with pairs and things like that, because you get in for cheap and you try and hit a big hand. But it's just very weak poker if you're just limping all the time, and that's what I was looking at just then. King Jack suited on the blind here. It's not the world's best hand. Here this guy goes again. I mean, example of what we were just saying. He's limped from under the gun, and then the guy behind him has then also limped. It's very weak poker, limping. You're basically, if you're an aggressive player, you have two ways of winning. You can either win with the best hand, or you can make them fold the better hand. So it's just very peculiar why these players are limping. And if I check here, it's just because I just think they're going to call me, and I don't want to balloon the pot out of proportion. If I do raise, it's going to get very big. I believe I get in a spot of trouble with this hand because this guy's betting so small. I was really curious what he was doing it with, and I believe I try and bluff now because this guy's just bet 100 and 100 in a row. So I then tried to be cheeky and only bet 100 more, and he calls me. So now I've just given up with the hand. I'm not interested anymore. But I do believe that this player was bluffing. He was just pushing me around. But there's not much I can do about it with no hand and a coolly station sort of player. By calling station, I mean he's just gonna keep calling you and not give up. Very difficult player to bluff. I basically tried to execute a play I call the min click steal, which is where you know they're bluffing and they're just trying to steal it with like a teeny bet, a bit like we did with the 111 bet into 300, and you go and min click their teeny bet and they can't do anything about it. If they have nothing, they have to fold because they've bet and then they have to call a bet, and it's very difficult for them to call the bet when they have nothing, especially a re-raise, because re-raise always looks strong. So it's a very clever little bet where you only actually technically put in 100 more than you had to, and you find out straight away where you are. So it's just an interesting play. You should definitely get it more involved in your game. And now is a good point to start talking a bit more about what an M zone is. And the M zone is as you can see in the tournament indicator or the HUD, it has their username and then a number next to that, and the number next to that is basically something called M. And M is your stack divided by how big the pot is at the beginning of the hand. So there's no action, there's just the two blinds in there, or the antes. And with that calculation you can work out what sort of hands you should be playing and shouldn't be playing. So for example, I'm on 6M, which basically means any hand that I'm going to play now is going to fully commit me to it. No matter what the flop is, I'm going to be committed. If I get ace king and I raise, the pot's going to get very, very large compared to the size of my stack. So I'm going to end up pushing all in on any flop, because mathematically I'm supposed to. And when your M gets to 5 or below, you are supposed to push all in at the start of the hand. If you're going to play it, you have to push all in, because you're basically just going to get to the point in the pot where on the flop they've called you. Say you have ace king, let's say ace king again. You have ace king and the board comes down jack 10 5. I mean, you're just gonna have to push there because the pot's gonna be bigger than your stack, so you really need to push. I mean, here I think I'm searching up the players on my table now because I'm getting quite curious of how good they are. So I think I'm going to deliberately pick one of the players as an example here, as they have a low VPIP. So for example, I think it's going to be Tifon maybe. Oh no, I'm doing the guy on my left who I was curious about earlier, the way I said he was playing a strange style. And Sharkscape's a really good way of finding if the players at your table are any good. And being dyslexic, I've now gone and screwed up his name and not realised that the L is an I believe. There we go. So I find out that he's actually made an average profit of 0, which it's better than most people, to be honest. I mean, most people are either in a loss or they're in profit. So don't really understand how he's accomplished this one, but it didn't really give me any information, to be honest with you, so I'm probably just going to keep searching the players around the table now that I'm curious about. And back to M zone. So if you have 5M or below, you're going to push all in, and it's a very simple calculation, but obviously mine's being calculated for me continuously after each hand, but it's very easy for you to calculate your own M. And knowing your M, you can also use it for other players who you believe would actually understand the theory of poker, that when your stack gets so low, you're going to push all in, you're going to push all in. And if you believe that somebody would understand that, you can use it. You know that, for example, if you're on the big blind and they have 5M and they push all in from, say, the cut-off, which is the position before the dealer position, you know that that hand's not necessarily going to be very good. So if you're sat there with ace-jack, in this occasion it's actually a very easy call, because you know that they're at desperate level. They could easily have ace-9, ace-10, king-queen, king-jack, all these sort of hands, maybe small pairs, and it's just it becomes very easy if you understand M, you'll understand, and you believe that they understand it as well. You can make more educated decisions. So if you had, say, 10M, that's where you've got quite a lot of chips, and you're just gonna try and build your stack by stealing. You don't want to get involved in any big pots, because any big pots you're going to end up all in by the river. That's basically what it means. You mathematically will end up all in by the river nearly every time, unless there's a check involved. If there's a bet every street, you'll be all in on the river, basically. And then 20M or above, you have loads of chips. You have so many. You either have loads of chips, or the blinds are small, because obviously the maths, you're dividing your stack by the blinds. So if the blinds are small, then you'll have a huge M, which is why I said at the beginning of the video, it doesn't really matter that much. And so when you have a higher M, you can afford to play more hands, because you can afford to try and hit big, basically. So for example, when I was saying you should only try and get it for cheap and try and hit a big flop, that's when you have a high M. You should be trying to do that sometimes. But when you have a low M, for example, if I got dealt pocket threes, I wouldn't limp with that hand now, because I would be putting in over 10% of my stack just trying to hit a set and then folding when I miss. That's very, very silly poker. That's throwing away chips. You don't want to be doing that. So you should either be pushing all in or folding when your M gets low. You have a large M, you can afford to try little moves, try bluffs and things like that. But when your M gets low, it's ship time. And M is one of the most important things I could try and emphasize that you learn when you're playing poker. For MTTs, for sit and goes, and obviously it does not apply to cash games. So here we are with pocket nines, 5M. This hand is going nowhere but all in. You don't really want to mess around. I mean, sometimes you can. For example, you don't want to be giving off tells. If people know that you understand them, then let's say I got dealt aces there and I only made it 300. I have made a crucial error. I've made it fairly obvious the hand I have. It becomes very obvious, because if they know you're going to push all in, then why has he only just bet really small? If that makes sense, then you're starting to understand them, because they will just look at you and go, okay, I know what that is, I got to fold. And this is why I don't agree with counting in big blinds, because you can get yourself into a false sense of security when you count big blinds. Maybe not when there's no antes, but in an MTT where you go, oh, it's okay, I've got 10 big blinds. No, you actually don't have 10 big blinds, because I don't know if you saw matey, but there's some antes there, and you're going to be out in the next 5 hands. So it's like, you know, you got to be very careful when you're counting in big blinds. It's so much easier to just calculate your M. It's not like the math is all that difficult. I mean, you don't even need to be exact. If you know you have over 20, you don't need to know the number. If it's like 150, then you have so many chips that you don't really need to worry about how much M you got. That was a very nice river card for him, wasn't it? So this stage of the tournament, really, we're just looking to try and find a hand where we can push all in and try and take the blinds. That's basically all we're going to do here. It's very simple. And in my opinion, I would have raised T-Fon there with any 2 cards, maybe from the big blind, because I believe he's stealing. As you can see, suddenly he's gone from about 9% VPIP, 5% raise, to a huge increase of playing 18% of his hands now and 11% pre-flop raise. That's because that player understands that the stage of the tournament he's in has changed. He now knows he has to play many more hands. And you could say, oh, why aren't you playing more hands then? But I haven't just got lucky on the river and made a flush and got more chips. But you need to start playing more hands when it gets to this sort of a stage. And as you can see, mine has increased slightly to 11 and 9 from about 9 and 5. So it has increased. But you can just tell by looking around the table as those stats start to increase. Or just, you don't need the HUD. I don't say you need the HUD, but Yeah, I'm not going to steal there with 2-9 against a cooling station. It's just never going to end well. You don't necessarily need the HUD, but it is very difficult to watch players. For example, I was on 2 tables. I have no idea what was going on in this table until I got knocked out. And only since I've been watching have I actually been taking any recognition of the players. Because the HUD has been tracking them the entire time. As you can see, the number in the top right corner is now 47. That's saying we've played 47 hands now. So it's been watching them for me the entire time. This is what multi-table is used. If you've ever wondered, how does that guy play 10 tables and still win? He's probably got a HUD running and he knows what you're doing. So if you think, oh, I'll be clever here, he's on loads of tables, he doesn't know if I'm stealing his blind. He does. He 100% knows you're stealing his blind, and he's just going to wait till the blinds get big enough for him to actually care. And then when you finally try and steal from him, he's just going to re-raise you, and he's going to make you look like an idiot. Not saying you shouldn't be clever like that and search players up, see how many tables they're on, but they know what they're doing. If they're on lots of tables, they know what they're doing. But on the contrast to that, they may not have a clue, and they might be rubbish. It ultimately depends on the player, and as I was doing earlier, you can just search them up in Sharkscope and find out. I mean, you can never have too much information at a poker table. There is no limit to the amount of information you can get. I mean, if you should be basically taking notes. I mean, the only reason I don't take notes is because I have this HUD running, and it's all the notes I need. But if you don't have one, I cannot stress enough that you take notes. So this tournament's finally getting somewhere. We finally lost another player. Don't really know why I'm taking so much time to fold King A there. If you guys think I've missed anything, some interesting strategy, by all means, post it, send me a message, whatever. I mean, I'm well up for the opinions of other people. This is not just training for you guys. I mean, I'm getting to watch me play back my hands, see where I'm making mistakes, all sorts. So yeah, it's as much learning for you guys as it is for me. And you guys may think that you're not learning at all, and yeah, you could give me a bad comment then, in that respect. Looks like we're about to lose our 5th player, and the top 3 get paid, so we're now in the bubble stage, I should say, sorry. And we are seriously short stacked now. We are getting to the point where it's critical that we find a hand, double up, maybe get a little bit of luck here and there. And this is me, I think, about to find out whether this is the bubble. I mean, I usually, this sort of flop, if someone had called me and let me check for free, I usually would have bet that flop exactly the same as he just did. I would have bet 200, but the problem is I do not have enough chips to be able to push anyone around. So I really do just want, because I know I'm going to be called by anyone, I know I've got to stick it in fairly good. I know I've got to stick it in as a favourite, and I'd be amazed if I fold here. I'm most likely pushing all in. King 9 is a fine hand to push all in with. You just try to take the blinds. The likelihood is it's better than what the big blind's holding, and that is the key thing in poker, to go in as a favourite. If you get knocked out of a tournament as a favourite, like I did the 10s against the 5s, you've just got to take it. You know, just laugh it off, whatever you want to do. Maybe if it was $6 you should care, but this is $5.50. I mean, you should be happy that you managed to make a guy with 5s, or you managed to call a guy who had 5s, and, you know, you should be happy with that. This is sort of a tricky one now. Jack 9 suited. I mean, I don't have a problem with pushing all in with it. I don't have a problem with folding it. It's just you have to try and realise that players at the table know what you're up to now as well. When you start pushing all in, and they're going to start looking you up. They're going to start looking you up really light, and I believe that may happen in this tournament. I think I might get looked up by someone. By looked up, I mean called with a bit of a speculative hand, and the guy on my left is Mr. Speculate. So, I mean, I've been very careful when it's come to him, when it comes to bluffing and trying to steal from him. And here's me just finding out if the bubble is the top 3, and it is. As I said earlier, I've invested $5.50 twice, so I've put in $11 total, and I need to get that to break even, and then even if I break even, I'll make a teeny amount on break back, but a profit's a profit, as small as it is. I mean, at the start of this tournament, I was insulting the guy directly on my left, but as the tournament progressed, I started to appreciate that he seems to be quite intelligent. He seems to know what he's doing when he's playing. He knows when he can steal, and I'm pretty sure he's been bluffing away. He's got lucky, sure, he's got lucky to get that stack, but since he's got it, he's been playing very, and obviously not going to call with 8-2 against an all-in, even though it's a very weak shove. He's probably got nothing, but it's better than 8-2. And he's been playing very very clever. He always bets the flop nearly every flop he bets. I mean, I could get up his statistics to find out how often he does bet the flop, but I don't really need to. This is a case where I'm watching the table. I know what he's doing. Probably tempted to steal here. No, fold it. And now I'm at super critical stage where I'm in desperate need of some luck or some cards. And fortune is not in my favour with 8-2. I mean, I'm not saying I don't play on PokerStars. It's just that I just don't like the way you don't get anything really back from the site. It's their tournaments, sure. PokerStars, fantastic site. Customer service, fantastic. And their tournaments, their guarantees are incredible. But if you go and have a look how much rake you're paying, you're just sat there and look like a lemon because you're paying so much rake and getting hardly anything back for it. And yeah, don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I find that there is a lot of weak players on these sites. PokerStars does hold some strong players. They have very strong players on that site. And I will show some videos of me playing on PokerStars for sure. I mean, there's some tournaments on there that I seem to grind very successfully on. So not saying I don't play on there, but for the moment I'm William Hill, so. I mean, the only reason I go back to PokerStars is because not enough people play on William Hill. I mean, if we could just steal 20,000 people from PokerStars to William Hill, I'd be happy. Because you only get about 17,000 people on this site. And that's the reason they offer you such a good deal. That's the reason they offer you that 45% rake back. Because they want you to play. They only make a small amount off you due to that reduction, but they're happy for you to play here. And their customer service is the actual best I've ever found. To be honest, just a bit of background on William Hill. You literally can just click customer service and you're instantly chatting to someone. I mean, I've called here with 7-8 because I'm fed up with this guy pushing all in on me here, and I found out that it was a bad call, and when I got quite lucky on the turn there, and I faded the river and got a lucky double up, which is what I was looking for. I don't think I can fold 7-8 in that position. I'm interested for your feedback. I don't think I can, because this guy's. I noticed he'd pushed every time that it had come down to small blind versus big blind, and I just had enough. To be honest, I was like, right, mate, I've got most of my stack in on this big blind. I'm not going to fold it. So I called him with 7-8. It's got potential. I knew the cards would be live, and by live, I mean that he's not holding one of them. If I hit one of these, I'm probably going to win. That's basically what live means. And I think the reason the percentages there were so low, because William Hill puts percentages up if you select the right options. One of the reasons I think it was low there is because maybe someone was holding a 7 or 8 when they folded. I don't believe that's what the odds are of 7-8 against King 10. And here I am making notes on people now, because he was frustrating me. He was frustrating me big time. I appreciated the way he played, but at the same time I absolutely loathed it. He limps in, and to limp in against someone it's just not good poker. You shouldn't limp. If you're limping all the time, for example in the small bluff you limp, you are making a mistake. Let me try and explain that. If you're and he should obviously call here as well, and I don't know if he does. And by limping you're offering them the chance to hit cards which can beat you. And if you ever offer someone a chance for free to beat you, you're clearly making a mistake. Even if it's 2x, even if it's just 2 times the big blind, you're pushing them to a decision. And when you push someone to a decision, you're playing good poker. You should never limp. If that's one thing you do, stop it. Stop limping. I cannot recommend that anymore. So now we're 3-way. I've made it into the money, but I will still lose about, well, $1 if I get knocked out now. I've not necessarily been playing for the bubble. I've just been folding because I've not really picked hands. And yeah, that's basically it. I'm not sure if I'm going to call here with Jack 9. And here I am finally making a note on this guy that he's pushed all in every time. And he is a strong poker player. That is strong moves. You should, as we said, you should play loose aggressive in the final stages, and he is doing just that. So hands down to him, he's playing correct poker. But you usually do need to win a pot before you can start doing that. For example, he just won that very big pot with 8-9, I believe it was. And obviously I would love for the guy on my left to knock out this other guy, because obviously you get a nice pay jump. But the other fact is that I don't believe the guy on my left is very strong heads up. As we've just been mentioning, he is limping. I mean, if you're heads up and someone's limping into you, you're loving it, because you're just checking and getting to see free cards. And I'm probably going to call here, and this is quite an amusing situation. The one time that I'm actually well prepared to call is all in, he folds. It's like, oh great, how typical was that? I think I do some creative here. Yeah, I'm getting creative now. I'm going to push all in with Queen 2, just to see if this guy actually does call and protect his big blind or anything. And he folds, and that was a well-needed pot. I desperately needed that pot. When it gets to 3-way, you're short stacked. If you could take any blind, you should do it. I think I might go again here, because I'm 4M, King 10. You know, I'm never going to be that far behind unless they pick up a monster behind me. So this is an example of me turning into the loose aggressive player now. I'm trying to get my chip stack up. But I did pick up 2 nice hands in a row. Well, one was Queen 2, not very nice, but positional wise, I believe I could just make that guy fold there. I'm not going to call with 7 Jack. As tempting as it is, you just fold it, it's rubbish. 4-6 again, not a very brilliant hand. Gonna fold again. You could say I've stole with Queen 2, but you know, they'll quickly get sick of you doing that, and they will just call you with any 2. Especially as these guys probably want it over and done with. It has taken a very long time. I'm quite astounded with how long this 10 max has taken. I'm used to tournaments lasting about maybe 40 minutes. Even on normal, as I said, I don't play turbo, because turbo is for noobs. Basically, in my opinion, it's for people that don't really want to play poker. And this is an easy call, waking up with ace jack here in the big blind and hitting a nice flop again. So I'm clearly flipping well, except for when I'm a huge favourite, I then lose with the 10s against 5s. And that's the perfect hand. That's exactly what we wanted to do there. Double up. And it was quite unfortunate for him to have 6s there. I mean, he's shipping nearly every time on me, And the one time I called him, he's actually got something to be fair. Here he goes again, just getting aggressive. He's just nearly made back. He's slowly making back what he's already lost already. He's a very strong player in my opinion. I mean, some of you guys might just want to search him and see if I'm right. I haven't searched him myself, but I'm quite intrigued because he's playing very strong poker. Far stronger than the guy on my left, let's put it that way. He only has one way to win, as we were saying earlier. He can only win with the best hand, because pre-flop he does just... Oh, I hate him. Excuse the loathing, but he just calls all the time. Just gives people free chances to beat him. So he might be a brilliant post-flop player, as in the flop comes down and beyond there he's brilliant. But his pre-flop, it definitely needs work. As you can see, my two numbers are very close together. I entered the pot 14% of the time, and when I've raised 10%. I said, sorry, no, 10% of the hands I raised with 14% of my hands I played. So those two numbers are very close together, and they should be. You should have those numbers close together, unless you're limping with and trying to trap people. And I've just hit a monster flop here for me. I'm obviously going to check. No point in betting, because you have to try and let them catch up a little bit, in my opinion. And I know this guy always bets 300 into a pot. I don't know if you've been noticing that. He always bets 300, a small little min click. I got in trouble with him earlier when I called him and then tried to re-raise him. And again, I'm just going to let this guy keep burying himself. And maybe even let him bury himself again, but he might check it down behind me. And he does. So it was a very nice pot for me. But his two numbers, as we were saying, they're very spread apart. 45% to 1. I don't think I've ever seen a range that wide. And it's just not good poker. If you're coming in, you should always come in for a raise. All the professionals say it, and I agree. And I think it's at this stage that the guy in the big blind has started to realise just how Zeux Finn, however you want to pronounce that, God knows, dyslexic I am, so good luck. And I think he started to realise how he plays, and just like me, he realises that his tiny little 300 means nothing. It means nothing on the flop. It doesn't mean he has anything. And he limps that much that you may as well push all in over the top and just steal his chips. And I think that starts to become an element of the game later on in this tournament. And here we are again. He's just 400, and I would never make this raise with jacks, but I just want to find out where I am. And again, it pushes all in over the top of me, and I find out, oh great, I'm behind again, so I fold. I mean, I just don't think he's bluffing there. That's why I make the smallest raise I can to find out where I am, and I did. I believe he had me beat and crushed right there. So you could say you could call, but calling involves me then seeing the turn card and him betting again, and then me having another decision. Me maybe calling, then him betting again, then me having another decision, and that can add up to more chips than adding an extra 800, was it 400 on top of his 400? And that's one of the reasons you should try it. Just try the min click re-raise and see where you are. Ace-4 here, hit the flop, not going to bet. No point in betting again, because anything they have is going to be better than me. And this is where I try it. This is where I realise, okay, this guy does this all the time. Let's see if he's actually got something. So I push all in, and he folds. And I find out, okay, so his 400 doesn't mean what he's trying to make it mean every single time. So let's start to exploit that, basically. So now I'm getting a bit more creative with him, trying to steal his blinds. Get called, unfortunately, and I think I just give up here. I mean, I was not expecting a call, and it kind of frustrated me a bit, because once again I lose those chips I just gained from him, and 1,200 I'm not going to play against that. So I am playing fairly tight because of the bubble situation, but at the same time I don't believe I can figure my hand where I've played it wrong. Be interested to know what you guys think, but I believe I've won chips where I'm not going to win chips by just stealing. And okay, I got lucky once with a 7-8, but I don't see how I can fold there. Again, he comes in for a limp, and I'm just praying to hit this flop. And I hit it again with the bottom pair with a jack, and I've already experienced what happens when I raise with the lowest pair. And in comes the 400 again, and this time I get away from it. I just think, I've tried re-raising him before, he's just betting to two people, I'm going to get out of the way. Queen King, I'm absolutely loving this hand now, whereas previously, see how the quartiles of the tournament have changed. Previously I was saying Queen King was not a strong hand. Now I'm saying it's a very strong hand, because there's only 3 players, and therefore the likelihood of them having a stronger hand is dramatically reduced. I'm even tempted to push all in with this one, but I fold. And I sigh with relief when I see this happening, because it looks strong, and it looks like I may have been out then if I had gone all in. Again, his 400 raise comes out, and this time this guy pushes. This is the second re-raise push in a row. This is where he started. The guy on my right started to make me believe that what I was thinking, that when he bets his 400 or his min click, he basically bets the blind on the flop. And I was like, does that mean he has nothing? And then this guy started to cement that idea as well, because he too wasn't believing him. And 6 is, I'm not going to do anything else to push all in here. 4M, as I said, 5 or below, you got to push all in. Just because, what's the point raising to, for example, if I raise to 1,200 and get re-raised, I'll then be in a sticky spot where you don't want to be in a sticky spot in poker ever. So, what do you do then? Do you fold 6s, thinking, oh god, he might have better pair than me? But if you just push all in, you're not going to fold to a hand like Ace King when you get re-raised, because, you know, you're already all in, you can't fold. So that's why you push all in, basically. You can't get pushed off of hands that you're actually beating, pushed out of situations where you're beating them, and you also have more power in your raise, because obviously 3,000 is bigger than 1,200, so they're more likely to fold. And here's another steal with Jack 9, just pushing all in, hoping he folds, scoop the chips. What you've got to remember is when you're 3-way, your hand strengths are dramatically increased, so even 10 king is a monstrous hand when it comes to just small blind versus big blind. Unless you have a large stack, you should really just be pushing all in, because they're likely to fold, and even if they do call you, you may have live cards, they may just have a pair, so it's nothing wrong with pushing all in. And at the moment, it just appears like this tournament just does not want to end. There's just not been any run-ins between anyone. By run-ins, I mean 2 big hands running into each other. It just doesn't seem to want to happen at the moment. Thought we might get something there, but apparently not. I mean, so here we are with Ace Queen. Guy's limped. Not going to do anything else but push all in here. Hopefully he calls, and he does call with Queen Jack. Board's horrible, any club and he'll beat us. If You can see the percentages at the bottom, and luckily we pull through with the best hand. I was quite surprised with that. That kind of shows me that this guy's tired of this, being stuck at three-way, and he just wants it over. And we can use that to our advantage. You can see that our other opponent is now getting quite low on chips, seriously low. And again, this is me hating the guy on my left, just limping in. I mean, what's the point in limping there? If this guy now pushes all in, the pot will get to 1,915. I mean, the fact, no, it wouldn't get to that. It get to 1,550, I believe it. And it's just, what? Why would you fold? I mean, you're just going to call. Why would you limp in? You're just going to call him anyway when he pushes all in. So you may as well, from the small blind, have pushed all in there. That's what I don't like about his play. It doesn't make any sense to me. Interested what you guys think, but I just don't believe that's the correct thing to be doing there. Always, always, always raise. Unless you have strict meaning of or a reason why you're not. Because here he comes again, just limping on the button. I mean, why? It's just beyond me. It's beyond me. And if he folds to this, I mean, I'm calling just on the fear that this idiot behind me is going to fold. That is the only reason I'm calling here. Don't recommend it. I'm only doing it because I think the absolute bell end behind me is going to fold. And then he goes and pushes all in, which is another stupid thing to do, because we may as well check it down together and knock him out. It's not collusion, checking down together, and then he goes and gets lucky on the river and hits a straight. So we're not going to complain, but he shouldn't have bet there because he's just pushing us away, and we shouldn't really be pushed away because we can help knock that guy out and secure some money. So there was no side pot, so there's no point in him betting there. Don't know what you guys think about that, but I'd never bet there just because I have the king. And here I am pushing all in because I've made top pair. I believe this guy's an idiot and he will call me, and he does with an open-ended straight, and he misses and we double through, which is brilliant, exactly what we wanted. Again, another sign of this guy wanting it over and calling it all in with only a straight draw. Clearly no respect for pot odds. Didn't really have a look at the odds, to be honest. He may have had them, but don't really want to get into the maths in this. It's meant to be a basic video. I mean, I don't strictly believe you need maths to be able to win at poker. It helps, for sure it helps, but I don't believe that you need it to be a winning player. I mean, here I'm just going to check all the way down every time, heads up. It's not my strongest area, heads up, but I believe I can take down most of them. My favourite area is just before the bubble, maybe, in 6 max, but yeah. Problem with William Hill is all the money is in first place, so that's where PokerStars wins it over, because they do give you more when you finish second compared to their rival sites. And being a player that usually somehow finishes in second, I much prefer that, being able to get paid a bit more for my efforts. So first place here gets $25, second gets 15, and third gets 10. Obviously in heads up you've got to play a lot more cards. It's basically you're playing your opponent. You have to work out what they're up to. I mean, this is the area where I'd love feedback from you guys. I mean, I believe my heads up is the only weak section of my game. So if you see some spewy moves, let me know. But I basically try and do the same sort of style, get it for cheap, try and hit a nice board and get knocked out. And always try and go in as a favourite. Or I try and annoy my opponent in a fashion. For example, going all in repetitively. You obviously need a few good hands in a row, but going all in repetitively will eventually make them call you with a weaker hand. mean, here I'm just betting a small amount each time, trying to push him out, and he's gone and raised me, and I've got to fold. Seemed to me that he's likely got a 7. Don't know what you guys think. The way he called me on the flop didn't imply weakness, but implied he hit, and then he goes and bets when the next 7 falls. Could easily be bluffing, for sure, but I can't continue. Here I flop the flush draw, hoping to hit the flush on the end here, and do just that. Now I bet much bigger because I believe this guy's got something, and I want to try and get as much value out of him as possible. And he goes and re-raises me, which I'm really happy about, and I push all in and win with the flush. At the moment I appear to be just getting my chip stack up then just losing it, getting my chip stack up then losing it. So I think I start to try and play a bit differently now. When something's not working, you should try and switch gears. I mean, I was really enjoying getting all the free looks at the flop, but I was never hitting them very strongly. And then he goes and re-raises me here, and again, I'm just getting frustrated by... He seems to play the flop and the turn the river very strongly. I mean, here's just another example where I think he's outplaying me, to be honest. He's playing well. He's either hitting big hands or he's outplaying me. And now I'm on 5M. I'm just starting to ship with any ace really. Just trying a new style. If I believe this guy's better than me post flop, I'm going to start pushing when I believe I have the best hand. That's the only way I believe I can beat this guy. Because I don't seem to be able to hit any flops, and he's out aggressing me. He has more chips than me, and I'm all around struggling to get at him at the moment. Now I'm trying raising 2x pre, see if I can take it. This time it works. Another free look at a flop. Hit middle pair. Yeah, I'm going for a check raise here. I was only ever check raising when I checked the 5 there. So as you can see, I've changed gears and got more aggressive because I believe that is the only way I can beat this guy. Get aces. I've raised a few times in a row. Really praying he has something, and goes and folds. So what can you do, eh? Get aces for the first time and they fold to you. Typical, eh? As I said, I'm not a fan of limping in. Limping in with the aces there would have just been disastrous, or it could have been. He could hit 2 pair and, well, that'd be history. I'm just floating here, maybe trying to bluff it off this guy. Really interested what he has mostly. I find he has queen 2, which is really interesting because he didn't bet the flop, he checked, and when the danger card came, he then went and raised. It was really peculiar the way he played that hand. And again, I pick up a nice hand and he folds again. Now I get ace 2 and I just push all in, thinking I'll be in the lead against his range. He folds again. Again, just push all in with the best hand here. Ace 8. Quite unlucky. Failed to find a 6. And then he goes and knocks me out. So, quite unlucky on the end there, but not much I can do about it. just the way it goes. Thanks for watching, guys, and please like if you found the video useful, and please subscribe if you want more. Thanks, guys.